Welcome back. Gonna do another deck tech video today. I've just been wanting to share some of the decks that I've made recently before I, take them apart and build something else. I only have so many cards, so I try not to keep, too many decks built all at the same time because I like to use the cards in other decks. But before I take it apart, I wanted to kind of document what it was and share it with everyone. So here we go. So it was the summer of 2019, and I had been playing a Chains of Mephistopheles discard deck at a few local events. I played it at 2 or 3 events, and the local events here, they allow proxies. Now, a proxy, that's when you use a card in place of another card. Sometimes that could be because maybe you don't want to play the card. Maybe it's stuck in a slab and you can't shuffle it with the rest of your deck. Or maybe it's because you don't own the real card. Preferably the first one. But in my case, I had this cool deck idea for a Chains of Mephistopheles deck, and I really wanted to try it out, but I didn't own 4 Chains of Mephistopheles. But the local group, they said that they were willing to play with proxies. And so I said, all right, I'm going to try out my deck idea then. It's a good opportunity. And so I did, and I enjoyed it. It's a fun deck. But I knew that I was going to go to Gen Con and participate in an old school tournament there, and they did not allow proxies. So I had to come up with a different deck. And I was trying to decide what to play, because I didn't know what the metagame was going to be like at this other event. And so I decided to go back to my old mono black idea from the mid-90s and make an old school version of it, because it was mostly, old school legal cards to begin with. And I'd give that a shot. So it was kind of thrown together, to be honest. My deck submission picture was taken on the tailgate of my truck, and it was hard not to get the cards to blow away in the wind outside. That was on the way to the event. But yeah, I threw it together and said, all right, that's the one I'm going to play. And here it is. I wanted to share it with you, and it's Evolution. So I have a previous video about some of the previous versions of this deck that I've built, and I'll put a link to that in the video description down below so you can see how I got to this point. And so here's where I was for Gen Con 2019. So the main changes from before, obviously I can't play Lotus Petals, so my solution there is Moxes. I own more of them now than I owned back in 1997. So that works out. That's an improvement, I think. Well, mostly. You see, the Lotus Petals, they can make black mana, even though I only get to use them once. In a mono black deck, it's nice to have black mana, especially if you have something with casting cost of 2 black. And so maybe these 3 Moxes here aren't quite as good as Lotus Petals in this deck. But I can't use Lotus Petals, and that's what I had, so, they're still good for colorless, and I have colorless things to play, so I went with it. So that's what replaced the Lotus Petals. And I couldn't play Dauthi Slayer, a Tempest card, and so I needed a card to replace that. And it's a 2 black, 2/2 creature that's difficult to block. I went with Hypnotic Spectre, which is a 2/2 flyer, difficult to block. It has a really nice discard ability, but unfortunately it costs 3 mana instead of 2. That actually slows the deck down a little bit. That combined with not having necessarily as much black mana turn 1, it makes this old school version a little slower than my 1997 version, which is alright. I suppose the whole format's a little slower, but it's just the way it is. So sure, I can still play this on turn 1, but with a 3 casting cost, I'm a little less likely to play it on turn 1 than I would be if it were a 2 casting cost card and I had, Lotus Petals. So this practically requires a Dark Ritual, or a really lucky hand with some of the other combinations of cards there to get this out on turn 1. Other than that, it's mostly the same. Previously I had 4 Juggernauts because that's what I had at the time. But since 97, I've gained a Jism Jin and these 3 Su-Chis. Now I was really struggling over whether to play 3 Juggernauts or 3 Su-Chis, and it's a tough call. My concern is that the Juggernauts were weak to lightning bolts, and the main removal that I was concerned about, that I thought I would see, would be Lightning Bolt, Swords to Plowshares, Disenchant, and the Abyss. I think those are the main removal cards in Old School. So the Juggernaut is weak against the Disenchant, the Swords to Plowshares, and the Lightning Bolt, not the Abyss. And Su-Chi has more toughness, and it is not weak to the Lightning Bolt or the Abyss. It's still weak to Swords and Disenchant, but I kind of thought maybe it would be a better way to go if it didn't get removed from the game when I was playing. And so I tried that out. They both have a 4 casting cost, so there's no difference there. Su-Chi gives me 4 mana, though. And with modern rules, if you're not playing with mana burn, that's not any big deal. You don't have to worry about it at all. But we were playing Old School rules with mana burn at Gen Con, and so it was an issue for sure. And Disenchant turned out to be pretty prominent, and the players were pretty skilled. They knew how to time the spell, the removal spell, to make it difficult for me to use the mana on anything. So I pretty much just took the burn, and that hurt me. So the Su-Chi probably was a bad call for Old School with mana burn. If you're not playing mana burn, it's the way to go, I think. But I probably should have kept the 3 Juggernauts. And ideally, even better than that, would be to have 4 Jazams. I think that would be the way to go. But I don't own 4, I only own 1. So, that is what it is. I got to play with what I have. But for the same, 4 mana, it's black, but it's a mono black deck, so that's no big deal. I could have a 5/5 instead of a 4/4, and I'm not that worried about the 1 damage that the Jazam does. So, the other change here is, instead of Zurian Orb, I have a Maze of Ith. Now, that's mainly here to be used, straightforward as a defense card to undo one of my opponent's attackers. More or less like having another Sorcerer's Queen or something. But another thing that it does, that it started doing in 5th edition, is pretty interesting. So let's look at Maze of Ith here for a second. Target attacking creature becomes untapped. This creature neither deals nor receives damage as a result of combat. So it used to be that the card worked really straightforward, like it did what it said, and so if you used it, the creature you used it on wouldn't deal or receive damage. This doesn't remove the creature from combat. It untaps it and makes it not deal or receive damage. So there's a subtle difference there with newer sets. I'll get into that in a minute. But so, it used to be pretty straightforward. You'd use it, the creature didn't deal or receive damage, it is what it is. You could cancel your own attack if you wanted to, which sometimes you might want to do if you're forced to attack with your Juggernaut. And, maybe it's going to die from something blocking it. You could swing with your Juggernaut and then undo the attack with the Maze of Ith, and your Juggernaut lives. Buy you some time to maybe get rid of the problem. So then 5th edition came along. And in 5th edition, the rules team decided that they needed to add a step to combat to take care of cleaning up all of the stuff that happens at the end of combat. Like when a card says that a creature gets some kind of a bonus or perhaps a penalty until the end of combat. Well, when is the end of combat? Like, it didn't exist before 5th edition. We just sort of assumed it was there and played the cards the way the game designers intended them to be played, but the rules team said, hey, we need an end of combat step. So they made one. What that did is it allowed you to do things during the end of combat step. And that made Maze of Ith a much better card. Because now, after damage had been dealt, but still during combat, you're in the end of combat step, you could activate Maze at that point. What that does is basically you can attack with your own creature, damage gets dealt, and then in end of combat, you can use the Maze to untap your creature, so it's able to block on your opponent's turn because it's untapped. So it's sort of like people describe it as a pseudo-vigilance, which is pretty neat, So that's how that works. If you ever see someone like use a Maze to untap their creature and it still does damage, and you're like, wait, what? Like the card says doesn't do damage. Well, that's how it works. That rule was introduced in 5th edition, that extra step, and it changed the way some things work. The other thing that's probably worthy of mentioning for Maze of Ith, it's not really relevant to old school, but it affects some combo decks. So, like I said, Maze of Ith doesn't remove the creature from combat. So, you can attack with a creature that has a tap ability. Let's see. If you have a creature with a tap ability that you can tap it to untap a land, then the way that works is you can attack with the creature, then you can use the Maze of Ith to untap it, and then you can use its tap ability to untap the Maze. And because the Maze never removed the creature from combat, it's still an attacking creature, even though it doesn't deal or receive damage. You can use the Maze again to untap it. So you can kind of infinitely do this tap-untap thing and, maybe get some benefit from it. I know there's newer cards that do that aren't in old school, and you can do some pretty crazy things, but I just thought I'd mention it since we were talking about Maze of Ith. It's not in this deck, but this is a deck tech video, and maybe that's some tech you might enjoy. Okay, so back to this deck. So yeah, those were my changes, and I played it. I had a lot of fun, had a blast at the tournament, met all kinds of people. The deck didn't do as well as I would have liked. I still think it's a decent deck. It's slower than it was in 97 because of, these changes. Like I said, the Suchi was a bad call. Because of the mana burn issue, definitely stick with the Juggernauts there. That's the way to go. I guess I should mention, I think I had like Black Vice or the Rack or something in my sideboard, and I often sideboarded those in. I forget which one it was. It's been a little while now, but I definitely, probably should have main decked whichever card that was. I think it was Black Vice, because I encountered a lot of control decks that kept their hand full all the time, and early Vice made a difference there. I did have trouble against some Troll Disco decks, and that's where they play something with Regenerate, like, Sedge Troll, Drudge Skeletons, things like that. And then they destroy all creatures in play, regenerating their own creatures. So I had trouble against that a bit. Maybe it was just bad matchups. I don't know. Sometimes you just have bad luck. But it is what it is, and that's how it worked out. I did learn some things from it. Like I said, I kind of threw it together last minute, so I'm not terribly surprised. But like I said, I learned some things from it, and I made some changes to improve it a bit since then. So, yeah, threw it together, tried it out, fixed it a little. Now I'm going to show you the fixes. So, first of all, Juggernauts instead of Su-Chi, for sure. The other thing I'm seeing here is I have too many lands. Like, why did I do that? Maybe I was concerned about strip mines, but because we were playing with 4 strip mines. But I have a lot of land. This is 20 swamps and 4 moxes and 4 dark rituals, which is, these are mana, not lands, and Soul Ring. That comes to 29 sources of mana. Now notice this land is over here. It's not with the mana because this doesn't make mana even though it's a land. So kept it away from the mana sources. So yeah, 29, that's heavy. That's too much, I think. So yeah, I had to fix that. So what are the other things I fixed here? Well, I decided that the Sorceress Queen wasn't as good as I liked. So Sorceress Queen was out. And in place of Sorceress Queen, I put in 4 Hymn to Turoks. This is a card that I've grown to like more since the 90s. I played it a little bit in the 90s, but I kind of preferred Mind Twist back then, and Hymn to Turok felt like a little Mind Twist. But these days, I don't know, I kind of like Hymn to Turok. Mind Twist is still great and all, and as you can see, it's here in the deck, in case I get some of that fast mana. I can play a huge Mind Twist on turn 1, and that might win me the game in the long run. But the Hymn to Turok, 2 cards for 2 mana, that's really nice. So 2 mana here only gets you 1 card. And it's nice to have the flexibility to pump it and include your other mana, but 2 cards for 2 mana is really efficient. Sure, it doesn't go up, but I like it. Now, the way that I like to use it is not on turn 1. I like to use this, let them play their turn 1. And then they'll have their more powerful cards that require more mana still in their hand. I like to play Hymn to Turok, at that point. Turn 2 or something. Heck, maybe even turn 3 if they're playing a slow deck. You never know. So, it'll get rid of better cards if you time it right. So I thought that was pretty cool. So I've kind of got a discard theme going here with this now. The deck's sort of, morphed into this. So Hypnotic Specters and Hymn to Turoks and Mind Twist. I decided to go with the Rack. And, like I said, the Rack may have been the card that I was playing in the tournament and not the Black Vice. This is probably why I'm mixed up. Maybe it was the Vice then and the Rack now. Whatever. So anyway, with this discard theme in the deck, I decided that the Rack was the way to go. Now, I didn't put 4 in here. I put 3 in. And let's see, let's get rid of the white bordered icy manipulators. So yeah, I took out some icy manipulators and put in 3 the rack. I took out 2 icy manipulators, and let's take out 2. Sorry, I forgot what I just said. Took out 2 icy manipulators and put in 3 the racks. I need to take out another card because I don't want to have more than 60 cards. So that card is going to be a land because I have too many mana in here, like I was saying. Okay, so 1 land out. Still have too many mana. And what I'm going to do about that is add 4 sinkholes. And take out 4 lands. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. That gets my mana down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 24 cards devoted to providing me mana. As I've discussed in another one of my videos, that's a number I like to use. So I can also deny some of their mana now. Get rid of something that's causing me some problems. Maybe Library of Alexandria, of course, the obvious target, or maybe Mishra's Factories, or whatever I feel like getting rid of. Now, is it better to play Strip Mines instead of Sinkhole? That's an interesting question, because the Strip Mine doesn't cost anything to play. Still gets rid of a land with no casting cost. So that would be a tempting thing to consider. It still provides mana, but it's colorless mana. Maybe that's an alright thing. I'll have to consider that for the future. So yeah, those are the changes I made. So this is, I guess, the current version. And, ideally, if I had them, I would play 4 Shazam Gens. Any other changes? Well, like I said, maybe the strip mines instead of the sinkholes. I have to think on that. It's nice to be able to play a land and still destroy a land. Yeah, just have to try that one out. So this is the current version of this mono black deck that I have. Let me set those aside and put these back. Okay, so that's what I played. And let me pick it up here. One of the things that I got at the event was this playmat. My friend Guillaume gave this to me. It was wonderful hanging out with him and Raphael at Gen Con, playing some games of Old School. Every night we'd meet in the hall and play a few games, hang out and visit. They were really good games too. I thoroughly enjoyed getting to know them. Thanks so much. So yeah, he gave me this mat, which is it's a high quality mat. It's got this this edge, seamed, stitched, serged. I forget what the phrase is, but yeah, it's sewn and it's like super thick. This is heavy. The best Old School Magic, Gen Con 52 2019. So that's cool. Got a playmat for the event, the White Lotus. And I also picked up this participation trophy. So I'm the one that signed in silver. Everyone else signed in black. I brought my own Sharpies so I could do that. I should probably write on this what event it's for. Maybe I could write it on the back. Does that matter? Nah. I might want to play unsleeved someday, and, you know, that'd be a marked card. So on this side, I'll probably write the event, right? Gen Con 2019. Otherwise, I might not know where this is from after a while, and I would kind of like to know. So yeah, I collect reconstructions, so I'm pretty happy to have this. I actually had to trade one of the other players' cards to get this reconstruction. They had the reconstruction, and I had something else, and we swapped. So thank you for swapping me. I collect reconstructions, and so I'm pretty happy to have this one in my collection, not only as a memento of the event, but also as a piece of my reconstruction collection. I think that's it for today. I have some more decks to go over, at least 2 more, I think. I'll get to those at some point. And other types of videos also, like this deck tech's not going to be a super regular thing for me. Mostly I'm going to be doing, you know, content like you've been seeing. But I had these and I wanted to share them, and this seemed like the way to do it. Catch you next time.